Greetings, dear viewers and friends. We are continuing an international discussion after the conference that aired live on December 4th, Global Crisis, Time for the Truth. And I took a part of it as a volunteer of Creative Society. And let me tell you, this conference gave me chills to my bones. And I had goosebumps from all the information and the truth that was delivered to the world. And I don't know if you can feel it, but we all know that we live in a wonderful time where truth is available to all of us, the whole humanity, so we can make a decision of what type of world we live in today. So I wanted to share with you that this broadcast was live for 12 hours. It was put together by volunteers from over 180 different countries. And it was broadcasted to thousands of online platforms, and millions, if not billions, of people have watched it and will rewatch it and will continue to study all the facts and all the research that was shared during the conference. And people who participated in that conference are true heroes of our time. We speak up the truth, and we are not afraid to voice the life-saving information that everyone needs right now, so we can come together and build a society that values human life.
Спасибо, Ольга. И с огромным
Thank
удовольствием.
you, Olga. And with great pleasure, I would like to present you our dear guests. They have participated in the conference Global Crisis Time for the Truth as speakers. And today we are also discussing about the real true cause of the climate change as the cyclicity of 24,000 years. And today we have astrophysicist Елена Позачкова, please.
Greetings, I am a representative of official science. Let me share with you what is exactly cosmic physics. I finished the Department of Astronomy, Space Physics, and specializing in space physics. And astronomy officially has such a position as the science of positions of planets and objects. Astrophysics studies the stars and distant space, and cosmophysics we study properties of the environment and the universe, from what it consists of, which processes takes place between stars and between the Earth and the Sun. This is the field of my research area of my activity. Later on, after the university, I made my dissertation in France about the sun. This is the main object of my studies because the sun affects the Earth, affects biosphere and technosphere of the Earth. After that, a long time, I have been working in Belgium Royal Observatory. I dealt with solar satellites. What are they and why are they needed for? We see the sun of the Earth naturally, but we see it in a, let's say, white light, visible light, what is visible to our eyes, for our vision. But we can watch and observe the sun in X-ray radiation and ultraviolet of the Earth, and we can see it with regular vision because the radiation observed by the atmosphere. And we launch X-ray telescopes into space outside the atmosphere, and we can observe the sun from unfamiliar, unusual angles of view, that we see the same object completely differently. What is really amazing, how the same object can look completely different. And 2 years ago, I moved to Switzerland, to the observatory in Davos. Here I'm leading scientific researcher on a new European-American mission, which is called Solar Orbiter. Solar Orbiter is, I would say, a huge breakthrough for humanity because this is first mission with telescopes, which is not only moved away from Earth orbit, it's actually It is beyond the plane of ecliptics. What is it? This is a plane along which all the planets rotate. All the planets rotate in one plane, and modern technologies, they allowed for a satellite to get away from this plane and to look at the sun from above and to actually come very close to it. What we called sun atmosphere, it is really close to it, and the satellite is not didn't burn. So I'm a leading researcher of this study and will investigate solar processes.
Lots of thanks, Yelena. You're a real expert in your sphere, science. And also we have another very dear guest. This is John Blendl. Please, Blendl, introduce yourself.
Yes, my name's Joe Blundell, and I'm a independent researcher, inventor, and entrepreneur. I have been studying a myriad of fields for a very long time, and one of my passions is the study of astrophysics and looking at things from a new set of eyes, so to speak. I believe wholeheartedly in Planck's principle. Planck put forward the idea that science doesn't change because scientists see the light and change their minds. Science changes because a new generation of scientists comes up and sees things differently. And I believe that we're in the process of making that transition right now.
Yes, thank you so much, Joe. And we're living such exciting times when we are having this global international discussions and the resources are available for everybody to study. And we are just so happy that this conference made the history bright, right? Now, once we know the truth, there is no turning back, there is not turning it off. We just have to do more research and come up with more concrete solutions, what we can do about the climate change and everything that's happening to our planet Earth. And I know 12 hours is a lot of information, but I would like for Yelena and Joe to share their understandings about what impressions you have after the conference, or maybe some of the topics that were new to you and exciting to you. And let's start with Yelena. Yelena, please share with us your understanding after the conference.
Thank you so much, friends. Why I really enjoy participating in the conferences, these are conferences, because this is synthesis of many scientific ideas that are difficult to find, and true scientists will always search for new ideas. And I will tell you honestly that I actually took a lot of ideas from our joint conversations, joint conferences. And this is what I like the most. I'm, for example, as a solar physicist, for me it would be difficult to understand the connection between geological processes if I wouldn't participate in the conference. And this is really interesting to me, to put these new connections, new dots, and into these astrophysical actions that I already know, because from this, new discoveries are being born. And I'm really like the benevolent environment. This is really important as well. Us, we, for example, don't have such an opportunity in our, let's say, official structure. We don't have opportunity to exchange so many ideas. So many times will pass until you write the article, and it will become outdated already. And actually, no one reads this article because there are so much of them. Such a huge volume of information which was presented at the conference. It's hard to find somewhere else, and this is just a huge gratitude to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Joe, can you please share your sincere impressions of the conference as well?
Yes, it was a massive undertaking. That is truly amazing that many people can get together and translate into so many languages. It is, it was a amazing undertaking. I did actually, even though I consider myself very well versed on the science, I heard several things that I've been looking at since the conference, just because I had never heard of things like the oscillation going on in the core and things like that. And I have, well, anytime I hear something new, I not only have to research it, but I then have to take that information back into my own worldview, universe view, and see if it fits and how it fits. And I really appreciated all the different, all the different viewpoints. It gave me a lot to think about.
Спасибо огромное, спасибо, дорогие друзья.
So lots of thanks, dear guests, dear friends. And if you let me, I would also like to share my understanding that actually on the platform of the conference Global Crisis Time for the Truth, it was for the first time in the history of humanity that the facts have been voiced out. Yelena and Joe have already known that actually it's not a secret that we have the cyclicity of the planet not just 12,000 years, but even the cycle of 24,000 years, right? And there is enough information just confirming this these facts. And it is really extremely important that we people should know about this cycle so that to get ready for what's coming in the nearest future, so we would have this opportunity to survive even. And right now, I suggest you to watch an excerpt from the conference with the participation of Igor Mikhailovich Danilov talking about this cyclicity. Thank you.
Igor Mikhailovich, you said that we're entering the 24,000-year cycle, and the consequences of entering this phase are much more complicated than in the case if humanity would enter a 12,000-year cycle.
They're certainly worse.
In what way? What explains this?
Well, we actually explained it more than once, but let's explain one more time. Let's try to explain in a simple and understandable way. Well, let's try to explain in an abstract way. Just imagine, let's say, a clock dial. This clock dial is our galaxy. Above it, there is the entire universe, a major part of it. Well, below, there are already galaxies. Well, they're towards the edge of the universe, so to say. And there is 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock on the dial. 12 o'clock is located towards the universe, whereas 6 o'clock is located towards the edge of the universe. What is a cycle? And here there should be an understanding. A cycle is when our galaxy, during its rotation, while it constantly rotates, so the cycle of its rotation is exactly 24,000 years. Thus, it is exposed to radiation twice, in other words, from outer space, from the universe, from galaxies. There is, let's say, such a ray of light, like a laser, just to make it clear, which simply shines. It shines not just on our galaxy, but on other galaxies as well. Aggregation and addition take place. And it's a very harsh interaction. It's not the light, it is something a little bit different.
Energy.
Right, it's a flow of energy that is formed by means of two lenses. Never mind, let's not delve into this. It's not an astrophysics class now. Yet, this hard radiation, when we get into a gravitational interaction, into a strongly pronounced interaction with the universe, with masses of galaxies along one line, let's say, we get onto this line twice during the period of rotation. When we get to the point of 6 o'clock, it's a 12,000-year cycle. Then, our entire galaxy is above us, and numerous planets take this hit. But when we get into this radiation, and at that time we are at 12 o'clock, it turns out that we are on the front line. After all, our planet is in the Sophora arm, well, in the arm of our galaxy. The planet is situated nearly at the edge of the arm. So it turns out that nothing protects us. And just like many other solar systems, we are actually a shield for our galaxy, for all planets and systems located below. Therefore, a much stronger impact takes place than when we are at the point of 6 o'clock, meaning when we rotate. Let's say, these interactions that take place, many people will come up With a question, how is that? It is clear that the galaxy rotates. Does it constantly occur or what? Well, the galaxy doesn't just rotate on its own, but there is also spiral movement of the galaxy itself in space, not only on its axis, but additionally. And so, getting into this cycle, when all this is combined, here we are exposed to this kind of process of interaction, so to say. Why is it not so dangerous at the other time? Because at other moments during 12,000 years, this impact occurs along a tangent line, meaning along a slanting line. There is no direct radiation. Here I can explain using the sun as an example. This will be very clear and illustrative. Why in the middle of summer, when it is hot and the sun is at its zenith, do our days become the hottest? Why? There is a straight ray. Or the sun begins to set, or autumn comes, for instance, or it is winter. The sun, let's say, is a side, and it turns out that the ray goes along the tangent line. There is no direct impact. For this reason, it is sort of warm, but not very warm. That's the kind of impact. Or even better, you know, this is for a totally simplified understanding. Let's imagine a bullet that flies out of a gun is flying strictly horizontally, and there is a target that is located strictly vertically, so the bullet hits it precisely. And here, naturally, if the material is not quite solid, the speed is sufficient and the hardness of the bullet is sufficient, then it breaks through this material. But it's enough to only change the angle of our target for the bullet to deflect upon contact. In other words, the target is no longer placed strictly vertically, but at an angle. So when hitting the target, the bullet will be deflected. The same is here. At 12,000 years, there is a reflection of these rays, and it doesn't cause us major harm. But when there is a direct impact, that's when the trouble begins.
Спасибо огромное, уважаемый Игорь Михайлович.
Lots of thanks to revered Igor Mikhailovich Danilov for this important information. And this information is truly for curious scientists to ponder over, because it's like hint how what in studies further on. And it's true that according to the ancient religions, not just the rotation cycle of cataclysms has just its duration, but also the rotation just a circle, and it's like in Yugi, you know, just in Hinduism, there is information about the small cycle, so to say, 12,000 years, and big cycle, 24,000 years of rotation, right? And here is the question to you, Lena, as an astrophysicist. So as far as we know today, what rotation cycle is presented in official science? Because, for example, we can read in internet that it's about to 12 or to 220 million years, but is it really so?
Yes, officially it is the period of rotation the Sun around the galaxy, as you said, 220 million years. But as astrophysicists, we can tell some facts, but indeed we know very little information about time and space, and we are constantly being amazed by new discoveries. Someone finds the radiation from the black hole in the center of the galaxy. Someone finds new black holes in our galaxy which also have radiation. Someone tells that the center of the galaxy, it's half closer than we thought. These facts constantly pumping out, and because the way we get information, the way that we make our calculations, I wouldn't say that it's limited, but it's getting better and improves together with the improvement of devices. And I won't be surprised if in a week, we will get completely different worldview and understanding of the world. For example, Galileo in 13th century, he risked and looked at the sun through telescope, and he said, look, Earth is actually spinning around the sun. So there are such things happens constantly. If we observe cyclicity, and such discoveries usually takes place, our worldview changes after we gather and accumulate large number of facts. For example, the teacher of Kepler, Tycho Brahe, he for 40 years he was writing down the position of and coordinates of the planets, and Kepler looked at was and he said that this is ellipse. And it seems to me that for now we gathered so many different facts that it's time for us to make new conclusions, which I think we will get really soon. And furthermore, I was watching again this video, and I understood that radiation which you talk about, it is not coming from the galaxy. It actually touches many galaxies. And here we know many types of radiation. It actually can come from anywhere. For example, absence, Miser radiation, coherent radiation. This is particles as photons, and they are at the same wavelength. For example, we see laser, we have seen laser wars, and this can take place in the same way. It can actually come from any molecular cluster from the center of the universe, how we imagine it. It can have completely different properties. There are very powerful processes, coherent, and here possibly can different radiation take place, as X-ray and gamma radiation. So, let's say, it's not that it's can be real, but it's actually at the verge, at the border of the modern science, of what we know today. We also can't observe the rotation of the galaxy around the center. This would be really interesting to observe, and here probably we're not sure about the accuracy, about the frequency, because this 220 million years is one rotation, and there is also another kind of rotation of the galaxy around the center, which I think it should be smaller. Thanks.
Right, I would like just to add just clarification, as you just shared with us. So actually, this cycle, yeah, it refers to the edge of the galaxy.
Yes, exactly, because it similar to gas form or to liquid form, and of course solar system is not at the edge of the galaxy, is definitely closer.
Also, you said that the objects next to the center, right, they have a small rotation cycle.
Yes, of course, this is for sure, because sun rotates as well. It has a gas form, and these are completely different periods of rotation of the same object towards another. For example, on Earth, at the poles and at the equator, there are different types of rotation, and of course the same with the galaxy. It can be different periods of rotation.
Probably within a 1 week rotation cycle, right, of the galaxy, if it's close to the center.
Yes, yes.
Very interesting, thank you.
Thank you so much, and it's so interesting. And I'm just a regular citizen of this planet, and I always fascinated about the information that is out there, and the 24,000 cycle, something that internally I can comprehend, understand, and feel like this is the truth. But Joe, I know you have been researching the Holy Science book, and that's how you came to the 24,000 year cycle conclusion. May you share with us briefly, like, where did your research begin and how did it open up your eyes?
Well, I would cite the Holy Science as the first book where I had ever heard of this cyclicity. I then went on to read things like Hamlet's Mill that really outlines the myriad of civilizations that have had this catastrophe cycle baked into the cake of their civilization, so to speak. Where my scientific understanding about what the trigger is slightly differs from the one presented is actually, I'm looking at the cause of the 12,000 years. The catastrophe cycle is actually our solar system spins exactly 12,000 years on the southern magnetic field. If you look at our Milky Way galaxy, right at the accretion disk, you can basically say that's the equator. And the southern field is the weak southern magnetic field. The northern field is the northern magnetic field. And we spend exactly 12,500 years in that southern wave amplitude, because it's actually the waves of magnetism that are rippling around us, causing these things. But for explanation terms, I'm just going to describe it as our solar system moving up and down from the southern magnetic field to the northern magnetic field. And the reason this is so tremendously important is that there, for about a 3% region of space, we have the magnetic mixing of the southern magnetic field and the northern magnetic field. And for that 3% region, when you calculate it in a 12,000, actually a 24,000 year journey, give or take a little bit, depending on the amplitude of the wave, when you calculate what that 3% region means, that means we will be going through the field of magnetic mixing for roughly 200 years. Now, the reason that's so amazing and correlates so well to why the Earth and Sun really get active during that time is because our planet is primarily a ferromagnetic material. We are existing on a giant ball that is quite literally highly susceptible to magnetic energies. And so as we go through that 3% region of space, the giant, depending on what you believe, I've heard the estimates that we're talking 220 million years to get around the entire magnetic field. So you've got a magnetic field on top that is literally 220 million years to circumference. You've got a magnetic field on bottom that is counter-rotating, and that counter-rotating mass creates the 3% region of space where there are massive magnetic vortices. And anytime you have a magnetic vortice, anytime you have a slight shift in magnetics, this is actually how we make, right now on Earth, how we make the highest energy particles that we experiment with at CERN, the super collider. You use undulators, which is just a device that sends an electron beam through a slight bend in a magnetic field to ramp it up to X-ray, gamma ray levels of energy. And so we are entering the region of space where magnetic mixing is the order of the day. And that if the Earth is caught in a magnetic swirling eddy and potentially in those type of eddy currents for 200 years, that can do nothing but correlate to a complete heating of the material of our planet, which, in my opinion, is why we have the supervolcanic eruptions that have fallen quite literally like clockwork 12,500 years ago, 25,000 years ago, 36,000 years ago, that we have had major earth-changing supervolcanic eruptions the last 3 times we have crossed that plane of the Milky Way. It's the highest energy region of the Milky Way where these two magnetic forces are counter-rotating. In fact, if you look at that accretion disk region of space, and follow it back down to our central galactic object, you can have a debate all day long about what that central object is, but what you can't debate is the fact that that's where new stars are forming. There are literally protostars spinning off into space to start their journey as being a sun, developing a solar system, and starting their path further and further out to further spiral arms on the Milky Way itself. So made reference to the book, The Holy Science. Quite literally, the book in it, the author describes this region of space we're going through in Hindu religious terms. He describes it as the field of Brahma. Well, in the Hindu religion, Brahma is the creator god. It is the field of creation itself. And of course, it's where stars are being born. We are literally getting ready to go through this region of space where we know magnetic mixing occurs, and we know how to make super high energy particles from the simple bending of north and south magnetic fields. It's how we do the most amazing experiments on Earth. And it's something that, quite literally, you look in the geologic records, what an unbelievable coincidence that exactly at these points is exactly when we have major supervolcanic eruptions. And life-changing, earth-changing, the place I'm at right now, if you're lucky, you can find a Clovis point. My dad's got a couple of them. They're very rare. And it's, from 12,500 years ago when the Clovis people ruled all of North America, along with mammoths and mastodons. And you know what happened? A volcano in Italy, the Campi Flegrei volcanic fields, went off and completely destroyed all of the Clovis cultures, helped lead to the mass extinctions of the mammoths and the mastodons, and forced all of that culture to flee as far as they could in South America, because North America became completely uninhabitable. And if you look at Europe at those records, that's when you see a massive influx of people living more closer to the Mediterranean, but a lot of nothing the further north you get. I mean, why? You'd looking at 12,000 years ago, that was still when the entire island of Britain, I believe, was under ice. Like, we're looking at a period of time when the world is very different than we see it now. And these cataclysms that occur with, simple cyclicity, when you look at the bobbing up and down from the southern magnetic field to the northern magnetic field and back again, we can point at where this happens in space, and the simple induction physics of us sitting on a giant magnetically susceptible metal, it's a simple equation to figure out why these volcanoes erupt with such great ferocity during these times.
Спасибо огромное, Джо. Спасибо.
Lots of thanks, Joe, really, for your explaining all this. And it feels so good that we do have different aspects on the cyclicity, right? And despite the fact that the model that was demonstrated at the conference, probably it is not fully reflected, right? The model that you just spoken about. But even in this video, right, it was shown that the galaxy is not just does not just rotate, but also spirals. There is spiral movement, and truly that magnetic field plays a key role in all these changes happening on our planet. And I believe, regardless, no matter what the reason for cyclicity reason, right? What kind of hypothesis we are studying, but just I believe that we should find out as much information as possible. We should discuss all the hypotheses possible, and I suggest all the entire scientific community discusses these issues. So I believe just support your point of view. And also, right, except these, eruptions, as Joe has mentioned, right, even during this cycle of 12,000 years, the magnetic field of the Earth, begins to change, right? And even some researchers believe that there is the inversion of the magnetic field. That is, the inversion is like when the magnetic fields, right, they change their places at all, but the excursion is like when the magnetic polar just moves during short period of time, right? And then, the polar just comes to its place. So what we are presenting today is just an excursion like that, and it started like 20 years ago, and of course we don't have it at its fullest right now, but we see it that this plays a great role. The magnetic field plays a great role because actually our planet is a huge, I would say, free magnet, and yeah, it's great understanding this field. Probably next question, Olga, please.
Yes, and I was also interested very much in the galactic radiation. And me is like a regular person, so what happens to me when I walk out of my house? So, Yelena, I really wanted to ask you what impact that galactic radiation has not just on our planet, but on human beings in general.
Это очень интересный вопрос.
This is a really interesting question. And indeed, I will tell you everything we know in the official science, let's say. And I'm really glad that what Joe described, how we can put it this way, that we already know solar physicists, and we call it the magnetic dynamo in the sun. But what I really liked, what Joe said, that we know for sure this process, the accuracy of the process, but we never thought that it can actually spread so far away across the solar system. We thought that it takes place, but we thought it's much closer to the sun. But now I actually understood that nothing interferes for this process to happen exactly where the planet takes place. And the Earth is a huge ferromagnet. So about the radiation, what we know for sure right now, there is galactic radiation that is called galactic particles. They are closely connected to the cycles of solar cyclicity that we study. We, people, Homo sapiens, as long as we study the science, what we actually call science. For example, solar cyclicity, we study for 200 years. We look at the sun and we see spots there. And these spots appear on the sun with a certain periodicity. And for the first time with Carrington actually started to talk about the certain cyclicity, and it took place in 1856. He was observing the sun and he noticed huge flash of white light on the sun. After 2 days in Canada, electricity went out, telegraph got broken, everything got broken. On Earth there was no communications, and it actually lasted quite a long time. And imagine right now, and this takes place. Imagine for 3 days we will lose connection. We'll all satellites. We won't have connection between continents. We won't be able to live without it. And actually, recently such a flare took place in 2007. It's actually it didn't went on the Earth, but luckily it didn't touch Earth. But if it would, we would have huge disaster. And back then, Lord Kelvin, he didn't allow to actually investigate this more, how sun affects Earth. But it is indeed truly so. Sun really affects the Earth really much. Okay, let's back to periodicity. When we were measuring the spots, we found 11 years solar cycle. The amount of spots, this is most primary cycle, 11 years. But the properties of harmonic property and cyclicity, that there are cycles that multiplied by 2, by 4, and by 8, maybe until some very large number. What we know today is cycle of solar activity of 6,000 years and 12,000 years. This is what some scientist was able to actually found by scientific methods. And it's really great, yeah. So what takes place now? It is called in solar physics that is grand solar minimum. Maybe you've heard about it in the literature as minimum Maunder, minimum Dalton. These are minimum in close history every 200 years. It's actually lasts about 30 years. These are minimums that we was able to observe in our history. We were witnesses of that, but I don't want to actually make you sad, but different things take place, different epidemics and plagues takes place during these minimums. For example, there was famine in Ireland. Revolutions takes place. The change of environment, change of bacterial level on Earth. Something takes place. Temperature changes, and this is enough for our climate to be unstable. Many correlations scientists have found, for example, dependence of solar activity on the level of disease and solar activity to the harvest, solar activity to the heart attacks. There is all correlations takes place. We also know that during solar flares, heart attacks occur more often. I would say healthy person with a healthy cardiovascular system, he doesn't risk anything, let's say, but if a person had predisposition, it takes place during so-called geomagnetic storms. So what is a geomagnetic storm? When a flash on the sun takes place, from the sun a large cloud separates from the sun. This is a gas with a very high temperature, and this is like magnetic island, and it flies towards Earth planet. And this interaction of this magnetic cloud, it starts to shake our magnetic Earth, the Earth magnetic field. So those people who are astronauts who are in space, they are influenced by this. We are protected, but we still continue to live in the shaking magnetic field of the planet Earth. We are human beings, we are citizens of this universe. The blood is going through our veins, and constantly different processes takes place, and our biological cycles takes place. One Russian scientist, Chizhevsky, he was studying this very closely, but unfortunately, due to some reasons, he couldn't continue his research, and only now this began to continue to be studied. He actually made such a concept as useful electricity and harmful electricity for our system. And there was one fact which I would like to emphasize, which we still don't get fully, which we fully don't understand. In our brain, we have our own frequencies, alpha rhythms, how they take place. Our brain is a closed system. We also have electromagnetic impulses that are reflected from, and there is standing waves. In any closed system, there are standing waves. So these are own frequencies, they actually coincide with the rhythms of our planet, and it's described as resonance of Schumann. He also described the standing electromagnetic waves. He made a theory, and it was discovered later on. So these frequencies coincide, and during the day and during the night, these are different frequencies, because there is such a concept as ionosphere. We live in a natural gas, but a little higher, around 1,000 kilometers. There are charged particles because the temperatures are very high. Electromagnetic signal is and the ionosphere is higher and lower in winter and in summer, and it changes, and the frequencies of our thoughts changes. That's why our teacher was telling us that maybe if you will sit in silence, you will think what a person think about something in other part of the planet. You may just accept the signal. So from the point of view of physics, this phenomena can take place. So I'll get back to how radiation influence us. Let's say this minimum is minimum, but during this period, flares can take place because energy is being accumulated for a certain period of time, and there is a sudden flash takes place. And I think people get used to live somewhere in between, not the maximum, not the minimum, somewhere in between, when there is certain activity, when the thoughts come into head and you run and go to do something. And during minimum, we sit and nothing disturbs us. The magnetic field is not being disturbed. You don't want to do anything. Probably some such states can take place, and also biosphere is changing. Probably we need to gather and to understand that we don't want to just sit. Chizhevsky was talking about it, and he tried to understand what exactly is known to us, that during the maximum solar activity, galactic radiation, the particles get less to us, because the field of solar system is shielded. And why is dangerous galactic radiation in relation to the solar activity? Our sun is, let's say, middle. It's like a middle-aged star, and it's easy to live next to it. Let's say before it was spinning very quickly, and it was period of rotation. It's 5 days, and for now it's about 30 days. So during when it was in 5 days, the radiation was so powerful, and organic life here on Earth was somewhere just when the creatures was going out of the water on the ground, and there was no life before. So we are happy that we have a middle-aged star and we are able to live. We are, as biological beings, are able to exist. And galactic radiation, as we think, is usually takes place from other stars, more powerful stars and more powerful particles. We can draw such examples as the engine of a car. If particles they take place and touch the ground, actually this car can get into car accident. So for now, during minimum, this is not being shielded. So what was the exact date? From 2010, this minimum started. It's been taking place for 12 years. I forgot the exact date, but it was statistically estimated according to the amount of spots on the sun. And the minimum of 11 years activity takes place during 1 year, and for now we have it more than 10 years. Galactic radiation is very strong, and we know that galactic radiation forms clouds. And greenhouse gas effect takes place. When I was myself in different places, for example in Greece, and there was no clouds in summer. It's really hot there, but for now, there are clouds. There were no storms before, and now there are thunderstorms. Now there was one type of climate, and it's changed. Now it's subtropical. And in grand solar minimum, I was really surprised. We also was talking about it during the preparation of the conference. I noticed that there are a large number of official articles appeared in scientific journals since we started to talk about this. Like, we knew about it, but we didn't talk much about it. So this minimum will take place until the 2045. We didn't get used to it at least in the last 200 years, and modulations are taking place as well as 6,000 years and 12,000 years. And I'm talking about it as astrophysicist. I have a narrowed speciality, and interesting remarks I had to what Joel was talking about, that magnetic field is reaching the Earth. This is absolutely true, and thank you so much for sharing. I think that's all for now.
Thank you, Lena. Lots of thanks. And really, today, well, it's not common for us that this low activity of the sun, and it is really so that probably it is kind of, well, it can accumulate energy right and then just sharply abrupt. And just decrease. And the facts that have been voiced at the conference, of course, these facts need more studying, but there was a fact, and Tali has voiced it out, that in 2019 astronomers have recorded a record-breaking flare on the nearest star to the Sun, Proxima Centauri, and it is 1,000 times stronger. That flare was 1,000 times stronger than the strongest previously known flare. And similar strange flares occurred on the previously, so to say, inactive star Barnard and the star Wolf 359. And so that's this speculation that the sun kind of well, these facts that have been recorded. Do we really need? Do we really understand that it's everything is happening synchronistically in the galaxy arm, or just going through a certain passage in the galaxy, we happen to be under the influence of this radiation? So probably, and with the nature of it, probably it's electronic or electromagnetic or any other nature. And why are we so sure that this is exactly the influence from outside? Because these changes happen actually and take place on all the planets of the solar system. And probably, dear viewers, if you have not been just aware of these facts and of all the reasons of the climate change, of the dynamic reasons and changes on the objects, please, you can find out it during the conference, watching the conference Global Crisis Time for the Truth. And these changes, what we have been observing for about 5 years, these changes are very abrupt, sharp, and quite strong. Well, we have been actually recording these changes for just last 30 years, about 30 years, and we see strong changes actually, and they're very similar to the those changes that occur on our planet. And we understand the objects, all the objects of the solar system are experiencing these changes, and as well as the queen, or so to say, of the solar system, our sun, stars, the sun, it well also experiences these changes. And we have just to figure out what will happen and what can we do to oppose these changes or catastrophic actually outcomes. And right now I suggest let's watch another expert from the video with the participation of Grigori Mikhailovich Danilov, that for any action there is sort of say anti-action, so we shouldn't just give up, we do have a chance that we should use. Let's watch the video, please.
Igor Mikhailovich, by what means can humanity withstand this impact?
And it's the most important question. Why do we need the entire human potential? Why cannot someone do it on their own? Because first of all, we don't have this knowledge. We don't have this kind of energy. We have to understand that the power of impact affecting our planet is enormous. So all the energy that we have on Earth that is available to us is not enough to counteract the power of impact that is taking place. There is a small nuance here too. I'll just explain for understanding. Let's not delve too much into this, it would take a lot of time. I understand that people might be curious, but the impact is taking place not at the macro, but at the micro level. In other words, it's not a direct impact of macro objects in outer space on macro objects. It's an interaction at the micro level between particles. It is an enormous energy. Again, I understand that the question will arise. But how is that? The interaction between large objects is a huge energy, but between particles it is weak.
Well, yes.
You see, our science is in such a state nowadays that we cannot answer many questions yet. That is why we need the combined potential to answer it. The interaction between particles, those that make up our entire universe, takes place at the energy level. It's an exchange of information as well as interconnections. That's where gravitation and many other things emerge, so these interactions are very strong. Look at what is happening to the planet. After all, destabilization comes from within the planet, while everything else is a consequence that we see. Now some people will say, what about other planets, my friends? On other planets too. We see what is happening now in the solar system, on other planets, those very landslides on Mars and many other things. There is activity too and everything else. This means it's all about cyclicity. It's just that it is somehow not trendy to talk about it, or somehow. After all, carbon dioxide couldn't have affected Mars and caused the formation of landslides, indicating instability there. But mainly the planets that have a core and magma are affected. If it's just a rock, it will remain a rock. There is nothing in it that would give rise to dissonance. There is only resonance between particles in it. It's just a rock. Whereas our planet is very complex. It has a core, magma, a crust, and an atmosphere. In other words, these are different spheres, just like in a human body, but they are coordinated. A single organism is formed. What will disorders in, say, a person's bone structure lead to? To irreversible consequences. The same is true for the vascular system or any other part. Whatever we take, any system, any disorder leads to a global destruction of the organism. It's the same with us here. Therefore, what do we need in order to counteract this? An equally strong counteraction. Let me give you a simple example. Let's use Tatiana, for example, for you to understand. Let's suppose I give her a little push, and she tilts. Why? Because there is a force of impact. And now resist it. You see, exactly the same impact, but she doesn't tilt. Why? Because she counteracts my action. If we don't put forward this counteraction, our world will simply collapse. Mars is an example of that. Those who are smart will understand, look and see where we are going. Why? Because the cause is the same, and the effect will be the same. Again, here we not only need to possess this energy, and in order to possess it, we need to discover these sources. But we also need to understand what it is and how to use it. For example, we do not use this energy correctly. Let me push you, and you apply the same force. In the other direction, you see, it's even greater. She almost fell. Why? Even a light touch.
Without help anymore, right?
Yes, she applied a lot of force, but in the wrong direction. So if we make a mistake, we will kill our planet even faster. I think it's clear now. Again, why do we need potential? Why do we need energy to build and do all this? Let me give you another example. Why? Because it's a complex process, and it requires all people, all of our potential. And why could we not do it when we were 7 billion? Why can we do it when we are almost 8 billion? Because our potential has increased. Because the task is multidimensional. and multi-level, and it has to be solved accordingly.
Да, действительно, сейчас нам нужен
Right. Today, we need the whole humanity, the potential of all the humanity. And Joe's words have resonated in me well during the conference about the unification of people. So, who is going to carry out that unification? It's we, people. And Joe, I would like to address you right now. Please share, how do you see the unification of 8 billion people?
Well, there has to be a goal worth working towards, and I look at getting in psychology. There's a principle known as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and basically what it means is that if somebody hasn't had their food, water, and shelter met, then they don't get past the limbic system of their brain to start using the prefrontal cortex and start inventing and critically thinking. That you have to have those three things taken care of before people can even get on to furthering thoughts. So even hearing that there's 8 billion people now, yeah, there's 8 billion people now, and there should be more potential. But in reality, if you look just here in the United States of America, the wages have stagnated since 1972, and rents have gone up almost 800, 900%. So in reality, rather than a civilization where we are getting more free and we're being more abundant, what we actually have is people's numbers getting inflated and them confusing and not understanding that inflation with progress and prosperity. Because the fact of the matter is, the actual brass tacks, nuts and bolts of people existing is not being met, and is actually being met far less efficiently than it was almost 45, 50 years ago. And so we as humankind have to work on what some people might consider would be an extremely lofty thing of attaining food, water, and shelter for every man, woman, and child, when in reality, if you look at how simply that can be achieved, it is the first goal to really get everybody even able to progress past that survival instinct, past the fight or flight. You have to have the basic needs met. Essentially, everyone, and I mean everyone, is capable of critical thinking, invention, and exploring the universe on the level of the greatest scientific minds anyone has ever uttered the name of. The only thing that's stopping them is that degree of security, a foundation for them to live, and time in which to start pondering these concepts. And I would also like to point out, while people think that we have more free time, when you actually look at what the deal is, we are far less free time than people had pre-World War I. We are a fraction of time to think that they did. And that's probably why you see such a revolution in science and technology back in the mid to late 1800s. That's the time when you had Tesla and Edison and everybody making the inventions that have changed our life. And really, unbeknownst to people, other than transistors and computer processing power, many of the things that we're using right now to communicate, the screens we're on, all of these things, the screen that we're using was invented by a farmer named Philo Farnsworth, who was sitting around one day thinking about electricity, how to send electricity, and how to make a coherent image. It was a farmer that invented the first transmission of video. You look at the inventions that have been done, it's because these men and women had time and the resources to dedicate their attention towards the furthering of goals. When you look at our technology, quite literally, sure, we've had a lot of miniaturization in the last 100 years, but there's been woefully few advancements in radio broadcasting ability. And yeah, sure, there's fiber optic cables and make things a lot more dense, but the basics, we're talking about the basics that were established by Nikola Tesla being the first one to transmit radio waves. I don't care who says Marconi did it. He just stole from Tesla. You look at some of these things, though, in science, the leaps and bounds we have made is when there was a society that had given people the free time. And to even point at food, water, and shelter and say that's a lofty goal, that's actually an amazingly simple goal. There are technologies that can be implemented. I've invented and have implemented several of said technologies that I would be happy to share further if you'd like to hear. But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of know-how missing on an industrial and public level as far as how simple gardening is. A lot of people think gardening is just a ridiculously difficult undertaking. And I have to say, that's complete bull. It's actually one of the simplest things there is to do. I've got a book over here. I could bring out my list of books. I've brought a stack of them, but the man's name, his last name is Fugaku, and he actually wrote a book originally in Japanese, but translated into English. It's called The One Straw Revolution. And basically, he promotes the do-nothing farming. And what I mean by do-nothing farming, I personally, myself and one other person, the love of my life,
So you know what? Can we keep this story for another broadcast? Because I know it's very interesting and we want the full story. Sure. Unfortunately, we don't have time, but we will bring you back and we will discuss how we can put food on the table for every single person and how simple that is. So Great. Yes, you guys come back and we will discuss that with Joe. We'll have more guests on and you will see for yourself how easy it is for us to go away from surviving into the striving mode. So thank you so much, Joe. I know you said the basic needs are so important and we know in a consumer society it's impossible, but since we're talking about creative society where human life is number one, anything is possible. And Helena, I wanted to ask you, we talked about how to unite people, but now let's talk about how to unite scientific potential so people can work together and really accelerate this knowledge around the globe.
Ну, во-первых, мне кажется, что
First of all, I think the conferences are speeding up the process of unification of people, because right now I would say there is no system or platform who would do it in the same way. And you know, while I was hearing your questions right now, I got the idea, if you allow me to voice it, as a physicist. Physicists are looking for global laws of the universe and how we can describe with one formula everything. Can we do that? And there are two types of such global behavior when people, scientists, elements can unite when there is some certain force from the outside. But when this force from outside stops influences, then this interaction don't take place anymore. And as a critical self-organization, in English, can it sound like self-organized criticality? Let me bring you one more example. It's also called as phase transition. Let's imagine slowly cooled water to 0 degrees. It will still remain water because it was cooling down really slowly. But if it's a little less than 0, and then a leaf will fall and the water will instantly turn into ice. This reaction will immediately go everywhere and become ice. This example takes place really often in physics everywhere when there are two conditions. First condition, there should be many elements, many people, many scientists together, and only closed connection. For example, I'm connected to you, he connected to you, and certain indignation can pass from one person to another only with the local connections. For this to take place, for the concept of self-critical organization, there is second condition needed, some critical condition. For example, in the example of water, it is 0 degrees. In mountains, these are avalanche. When there are snow slowly falling down and eventually it falls very fast as an avalanche, this is another example. And when in physics there are many elements, this example is really important. For example, in thermodynamics, there is also two beginnings, and if you will allow me to rephrase it a little differently, not the way it used to be. If we have a closed system and many elements, nothing influence it. What will take place? It will be chaos, maximum entropy, just the end. Nothing more, nothing else left. And if there's something else, and there is some critical something takes place, if a system is open from the forces from the outside and some critical influence takes place, systems with many elements, it can be system with scientists, they can be organized because it's another law of external control, and it affects everyone. This is how I see it myself. I understood it while I was listening to all of us, that we have all conditions for this now. That's why I believe in this. Thank you.
Yelena, lots of thanks to you. And I remember your sincere words during the conference that you addressed all the scientists to get united. And I would also like to give an example as out of, from the Malbegin's crystals began to be formed, and just even from a small grain, yes, then these crystals, right, can be formed into something beautiful and something amazing in nature, right? So I would also like to say that it is right today that we are beginning the project that could be the beginning of the unification of scientists, people. So we, or each of us, right, is like small crystal that could give his or her contribution to the whole project, to the whole cause. That is why we invite all our dear speakers and viewers to go on studying towards towards one goal, so to figure out what's really happening on our planet, in order to be able to understand how we can save 8 billion of people's lives. And also we invite everyone, right, who to watch today's program, and who, just scientists, colleagues, anyone who's interested to figure it out, in order to join our efforts in our research, in joint research, and everyone, all the volunteers who do it just out of their free will. And as Elena has said, that the more there are people in this system, right, to carry out this great project, the better, and the sooner we'll reach it. So lots of dear friends, it's been so interesting during today's International Roundtable. Lots of things.
Очень было интересно, замечательно.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you so much to our guests.
Lots of things.
Yes, and if you're watching us now, please make sure to email any questions you have at info@creativesociety.com. We are accepting all questions. We are accepting everybody into the project. This is a project of our lifetime, and only together we can figure it out. And no one else is going to do it for us. So let's be the heroes. Let's really study every subject. Let's really try to understand it. And here we were talking about research and science today. And here, what we have discussed today, we have discussed the 24,000 and 12,000 cycles. We have discussed galactic radiation and how it affects us and other planets and our planet. We also discussed the spin cycle of our galaxy, the sun flares, the catastrophes that are happening every 12,000 years, the magnetic field shifts and what it means for us, for the planet. We also talked about how everything in a galactic affects our daily lives and how we all can come together. We talked about the new discoveries of the counteraction technologies that are needed to protect our planet and lives of every single human. And of course, we discussed the unification and the project Creative Society, and not just unification of humankind, but also unification of scientific community so they can come together. And how fun would it be when all scientists of the world come together and they discuss this together and they see what is possible for us and they look at the picture realistically and from all points of science, no matter who has what to bring to the table, we can all merge this into one big truth that is taking over the world. So it's very exciting. I don't know, you probably can feel it. I'm excited. This is amazing time. We are all so grateful to be living in this time, the time of truth. And I invite everybody to join these international discussion tables and to join everybody around the globe to ask questions, to understand more, to do your own research, to really become part of the Creative Society, a big human family that we are growing right now. And the class of Creative Society is in session now. We all learning, we all understanding, and sometimes we don't understand, but that's why we are here, to ask the right questions, to get the facts, and to really see what is human potential is capable of when we work towards one goal, which is survival of our civilization, and where we protect each human life like our own. So I just would like to thank our guests, Yelena and Joe. Thank you for being here. And I wanted to give you the last word that you can share with our audience. And Yelena, please share an inspiring message to the world after this amazing discussion we just had.
Спасибо, друзья.
Thank you so much, dear friends. I truly believe that we can create something good together, especially today when I see that so many people want to work together. How important our ideas are, how important our desires and our positive attitude. And thank you so much for this, and let's work together.
Thank you so much, Elena. And it's so important not to be silent, and it's so important to voice the truth and do the research together. Joe, please share message of inspiration to the world.
I just have to say that no matter what position you find yourself in, no matter what economic level you find yourself in, you are able to make a positive difference in your own life, in the lives of people around you. And it takes a lot to sometimes pull yourself up, but I know it can be done. I know that you are capable. If a guy rolling around in a wheelchair can figure out how to live and restart his life, then how much more of a head start do you have right now? Even if you are not able-bodied, you have the ability with your mind and your time to study, research, and disseminate. And like you were talking about, a crystal, it really is that seed crystal that when people see your life changed in a profound way, that can do nothing but spread that change to those around you. And I believe the old, the quote's beaten like a dead horse, but become the change you want to see. That is what you have to do. You have to live the reality that you want to see come into existence. And if you don't do it, no one will do it for you. You'll have to make it on your own. You have to bring it from inside and share it with the world. And by our collective sharing, we can truly make something awesome to behold on this planet.
Thank you so much, Joe. And it's exciting to see our future unfold in front of our eyes, and its future is bright. And we welcome everybody to rewatch the conference that took place on December 4th, Global Crisis, Time for the Truth. And we hope that you really enjoyed this conversation and you can join us next and bring the topics that are vital to you or the field of study that you have. Or if you're just a regular person that question things, we invite everybody. This is a project of our lifetime. This is a project of the whole humanity. We are coming together and we have a song that will bring us closer together as well to end this broadcast. Thank you so much for being on.